Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd fa bismillah assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Indeed, all praise and thanks are due to Allah, and peace and blessings be upon His messenger. Proceeding to the video, we begin with Allah's name, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So peace be upon you, welcome and greetings. We've just finished a lot of muds recently, so now we're going to combine two topics, which is the last type of mud we'd like to cover, bi'idhnillah, which is maddul aarid. And we're going to mix that with now one of the main concepts of your reading in the Quran, which is the ayat. Literally or linguistically, ayat means sign. And we talk about an ayat as a verse of Quran. We call it a verse. More or less, verses we associate with poetry, which is why some people don't like to use the term verse when we say the Quran. And that's generally why a lot of us still use the word ayat. So an ayat, again, linguistically it means sign, but now when we talk about the Quran and again we'll use the word verse to explain what it is, means ayat. So if we go to Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening chapter, we're going to see at the end of any given verse, basically, that signifies an ayat. So all this means is that you're going to try to cut a harakah. That's what the ayat means. So just a quick tip. Right here in Surah Fatiha, it says Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is the first ayat. Also, you might notice that the next one says 2. So this one says 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and etc. So one of the things that we might want to try to notice is that sometimes some Quran, some Mushaf, or some Musahif, they don't use the Bismillah as the first ayat. They say Alhamdulillah as the first ayat. And then Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim second. Malik Yawmiddin third. Iyaka Na'budu is then fourth. Ihdina Siratal is 5. Siratal Ladhina An'amta Alayhim. Up until there, that's the 6th. And then Ghayril Maghdubi Alayhim Waladdallin is the 7th. Nonetheless, both are 7 in count though. So now we're going to go into the ayat itself. So if we type out Alhamdulillah over here, Alhamdu, so Alif Fatha, Lam Sukoon, Ha Fatha, Mim Sukoon, Dal Dhamma. Alhamdu Lillahi Rabbil Alameen. So now we're going to put a Ain here, and remember there's a standing Fatha, Alameen. Okay, so now let's move this over a little bit. We're going to see Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Right here at the end we see Alameen. Alameen. So let's say over here we're going to have in ayat, for example, right there. So that'll be our stop signal. So all that means is it's telling us to drop the last harakah. So basically what we're saying is that all this means is right here, instead of a fatha, you're going to make that a noon sukoon. You're going to drop the fatha and you're going to put a sukoon there. That's all it says. So you're going to read it with sukoon. It's written with a fatha. It's read like that. So that's only if I stop. So if I'm going to stop here, we're going to say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Meen. So now we're going to incorporate the maddul aarid now. Maddul aarid is the mud when you want to stop at a point. So let's say I choose to stop at this particular ayat. So this meen, I can prolong it for 2 harakah, 3 or 4 harakah. So the thing is, the catch is I have to be consistent. So if I say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen for 4 harakah, then I have to say Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim at the end for 4 harakah as well. I can't say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen 4 harakah, then Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim 2 harakah. Rather, I should not do that. So the rule of the recitation is if you're going to do 4, then do 4 at the end. This is the maddul aarid. So this is at the end of an ayat. When you have a maddul asli, then you're going to prolong it if you choose to for 4 harakah, but you're going to try to keep that consistent. So basically, when you stop at an ayat, all it's really saying is that cut the last harakah off. So in the next video, inshallah, we're going to be covering examples. But first and foremost, let me just try to say right now that this is a very difficult concept to grasp. So even if you become fluent in reading, you still might be confused at the stops. So what I'd recommend is that if you ever have trouble reading an ayat at the end of an ayat, when you have the ayat mark, and by the way, there are numbers inside. If you have trouble reading that, then just play, mashallah, we have a lot of qur'an, a lot of reciters, recitation. We can listen to them and just see how they end an ayat, and we can just copy, because bi'idhnillah, they are fluent in their recitation, so their recitation will be correct, bi'idhnillah. One more thing we want to mention is that sometimes you might have some people that read past an ayat. For example, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. If you notice, I did not stop. So I read the fatha on the noon if I want to continue, and I also read the kasra on the meme if I want to continue. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. So basically, there's a few different types of rules regarding this, or principles rather. One principle is that at every ayat, a reciter stops. Personally, this is the principle I follow, and some other reciters follow it as well. Namely, Mishari al-Afasi, he follows this pattern. He'll mostly stop. Most of his recitation is stopping every ayat by ayat. Particularly, I've heard Muhammad al-Luhaydan do it. Others that don't do it is like Sheikh As-Suddais from the Chief Imam of Mecca. Also, you might hear Shuraim do the same thing, and you'll probably hear Abu Bakr al-Shatri do the same. And generally, you have different styles. Basically, what I'm saying is that you can choose to stop at every ayat, or you can choose to continue at an ayat. Personally, I stop at an ayat, but again, this is up to your personal preference. So, in the next video, we'll cover more examples of the stoppings at particular ayat and what it does. And these are all parts of maddul aarid, meaning the abrupt stop, where you stop at an ayat. Also, one more thing I'd like to mention is that even if you don't stop, the same rules of an ayat apply in little markings in the mushaf. And we'll cover those in a few videos after this one, bi'idhnillah. So please try to remember that, inshallah. So for now, we're going to call this video a wrap and go into the next video of examples on how to stop at different areas in the Quran that you might have difficulty trying to dissect. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.